Well, I think it's worth saying that in 2015 I did two things early in that year. The first one was that I co-founded the Women's Equality Party. And that was in March. In April, I left the job that I had been in for 11 years at Time magazine, and I launched legal proceedings against my former employer for sex and age discrimination. So it was the whole shebang. It wasn't just equal pay, it was sex and age discrimination. Both of those things have moved along considerably since then. I'm happy to say that I reached an amicable resolution just a couple of months ago. And in terms of the individual impact, it's really worth returning to that in a minute. But the founding of the Women's Equality Party was really because of recognizing a whole host of things that have already come up this morning. The systemic nature of this, the power imbalance nature of this. This is so important, what people have been talking about here. I had, as I rose in journalism, believed that in making progress, in rising high, that I was blazing a trail that other women could follow. And then I turned around and I saw exactly the same things happening to other women. I understood my own impotence even when I was Europe, Middle East and Africa editor of that magazine. I could not really substantially change the content, which is another point I would like to come back to here, particularly because Sam was talking about the difficulties of getting coverage for her case. And I also understood that because of that systemic nature, we had to do things that tackled it from that viewpoint. So it's really obvious when we're talking about equal pay that we will never get equal pay, we will never get equality in the workplace until we also have equality at home. We will never get equality until we have equality in the education system. We will never get equality until we manage to reduce this extraordinary toll of endemic violence against women and girls. We will never have equality until we have equal representation. So all of these things needed to be addressed, and I had been, as a journalist, covering politics very closely for a very long time, and one of the things I'd seen also raised this morning was that there are really excellent women in actually, I was going to say all of the parties, I might exempt a couple of them there. I haven't noticed an excellent woman in the DUP recently. But I have always known Tory feminists. I have, admired Jo for such a long time. Fiona, I knew when she was a Labour MP. There are great women there. And they are often let down by their own parties. And that is why I felt it necessary to create a separate party that would be focusing on this. And I really hoped would help the women in the other parties as well and put forward a collaborative way of doing things and really focus, I said we won't get equality in the workplace until we get equality at home. It is all around care work, the undervaluing of care work, the failure to invest equally in social infrastructure as well as in physical infrastructure. We have the most expensive childcare in the OECD in this country. It is so obvious that if we invest properly in universal childcare, that will actually that will generate growth, that will pay for itself very quickly, but it will also get rid of this thing that makes the gender pay gap so incredibly difficult to resolve, which is the thing that says that, oh, well, I can't stay home and look after the children if I'm a man because I'm earning more than my female partner. So it's this vicious circle we have to break. We have to have properly, fully invested parental leave. Now, another thing that the Women's Equality Party campaigns for is equality in the media. Very close to my heart. I really want to salute Kerry. I think what she has done is absolutely amazing. I salute Sam as well. I also know what this feels like. I'm going to try not to get emotional. The thing about this is it doesn't just affect us as individuals, it affects the output. The media is a reflection and of the society that it occupies, but it also reinforces when it could challenge. Kerry said something interesting too about the need for impartiality, that is something baked into the BBC. It is, but unfortunately so is false balance. The number of times I am invited on Equal Pay Day to debate whether the gender pay gap is real or not, with usually somebody very lovely and very young who has not yet realised that the gender pay gap opens up at the age of 30, by the way, whether you have kids or not. And that it is far worse for women of colour, women with disabilities. You know, that there are so many things that we need to talk about, that we need to do, that are concrete things, like on gender pay gap reporting. You know, the government's now proposing to have separate ethnicity pay gap reporting. It shouldn't be separate. We need to look at the way these things intersect and intensify. So, for me, those are all really important things. Sorry, I won't keep going on. But in terms of my own lawsuit, which went on, as you gather, from 2015 until just now, I would like to encourage other women to come forward. I sued in the States, which was a different system, and so my case went public whether I wanted it to or not. I was terrified about that because not only is the media riven with all of the problems that it should be challenging, but as you know, it tends to monster women who put themselves in the public eye. I didn't even do it deliberately. Like Sam, I did seek to reach a private resolution, and I was denied that opportunity. When my case went public, I thought my world was going to come to an end. I thought I was going to have this big sign over my head saying, unemployable, problem, terrible person, obviously it's her fault, obviously it's her fault. You know what happened? Many other people came forward to say that the same thing had happened to them. Loads of witnesses came forward. The man who was the kind of main architect of my misery actually lost his job 3 days after the story came out. So it was very similar to the Me Too movement. It's, you know, and one of the reasons that when we have to look at the power imbalances, recognised everything Sam said about the problems of and Kerry about talking to HR and the way that you end up gagged. We do need to find ways to get the story out, but it has to be collective action as well, because I was able, I am old, I have money, I could do this. It did threaten my background, my flat. I remember having an argument, not an argument with my husband. I was just going to pay tribute to my husband, and it came out as argument. What I was going to say is, I remember saying to him, if I take this next step in the legal action, we may lose the flat. And you know what he said? So I was lucky. I was able to do that. I want us to work together across parties with wonderful organisations like Fawcett, this wonderful initiative that Kerry has helped to fund. I want us to be able to work together to make this change and to recognise its systemic nature and to tackle it that way. So thank you.